Hello and welcome to the 1981 Digital Podcast. Today's episode, we have my good friend, Fred Saurmann, who is the production manager at First Christian Church in Decatur, Illinois. If you don't know Fred is a wildly talented producer, multi-instrumentalist, audio engineer, and so many more things. And he has a pretty cool story to tell about working in church media. So without further ado, here's today's episode with Fred Saurmann. Hello and welcome to the 1981 Digital Podcast. Today we have with us Fred Saurmann.
Yo.
How are you, Fred?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. I feel like this is falling. Perfect. Doing great already.
Yep, solid.
So I was thinking on my drive here about when I first made your acquaintance, and I realized it was at an up all night. It's like a lock-in, probably circa 2013, I'm going to guess, so nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I saw you on stage, like, ripping an acoustic guitar to some probably Mumford & Sons, Wren Collective adjacent tune.
I do remember that.
And so that was, like, my entrance
Type
into you, and
right
I was
there.
like, man, this dude is the coolest dude I will ever get to know.
Well, I
He's
appreciate
tearing it up.
that.
So 10 years later, I'm pretty sure that anyone who knows you would also echo that sentiment, that you are, in fact, the coolest person any of us know.
I try.
At least the beardliest person any of us know.
Probably.
I watched a video on my way here about, I looked up First Christian Church, because there was another video I was trying to find from, like, an even longer time ago, and I found both of them. I'm going to make sure I leave the footage in here somewhere. But they addressed you as Beard King or King Beard. How does that make you feel, Fred?
I feel like I have a lot to live up to still. I don't know if this beard is worthy of its royalty.
Of its kingship?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I want to start a little rapid fire here.
Okay.
So you've got friends in town visiting. Where are you guys going to eat, to drink, and to hang out?
We're going to Cancun, Mexican.
Okay. We are hopping on a plane and going to Cancun. Okay, I love it.
There's people that would give me a hard time about that one, but I don't care. Cancun's like my cheers.
I love
They
it.
know my name. I don't know if they know my name, but I like to think they do.
I love that.
Yeah, it's good. Where are we going to get something to drink? Well, can it be an adult beverage?
Of course it can.
Okay, then I'm going to
At the
door
discretion
4.
of your employer, if that's okay.
I don't know why. No, I think so. Okay, I would go to door 4. I
Yeah.
think so. They're the head brewer there. I've gotten to know a little bit, and solid guy, knows what he's talking about. They're pumping out some good beer.
I love it.
So yeah, I'm into it. What was the third one? I
Hang
forgot
out.
already.
Where are you going to hang out?
Where are we going to hang out?
Could be a bonfire at your backyard. I mean,
I want to hang out. I want to hang out in my living room
okay.
and spin up some records.
I love it.
Yep.
What's your first record you're putting on at the moment?
Oh, yep. So Dave Brubeck Quartet.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Definitely got to start with a little jazz.
I love
and work
that.
your way into it.
I bought that record actually. Well, I bought one of the Dave Brubeck Quartet.
Is it the
records
one that
last
has
year.
Take 5 on it?
No, but it was the Record Store Day exclusive,
Oh, okay, yeah.
2022.
Yep.
Yeah, so good taste.
Mm-hmm. I do like that simple quartet, trio, jazz. I don't know. There's something about it.
Kind of sit back a little bit. Yeah,
Simple.
I love that. Well, you have been at First Christian Church here in Decatur, Illinois, for how long now?
I started full time in 2011. Before that, I was doing some part-time work for them. I had friends who came here, and the short version is there was a couple weekends needed a bass player or drummer to fill in, and so that was my connection to the church, so I filled in a couple times. The church found out I was into production and technology, and so they brought me on in a part-time capacity, and then full-time in 2011. So
Huge. And you got your degree in audio engineering from Millikan, is that right?
Yeah, so I don't even know if I call it an audio engineering
Sure.
degree. It was at the time, Milliken didn't necessarily have like just a straight up like here's an engineering track.
Sure.
So I kind of had to do it on my own, not on my own, but like build it out that way, which was fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it. At the time, like digital recording was not like they didn't have a lot of that in the studio. A lot of it was largely analog. So that was kind of interesting to learn some of that. But I think it's been a good thing.
So you obviously you landed in production,
Yeah.
but you had a background in like multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you land in production? Because you are I was just telling our dear friend Thomas Hagen that any amount of musicianship I have comes from you were among a list of 4 people. I think that you have taught you've taught a lot of musicians how to really like think critically about the music that they're playing and engaging in, especially on the stage setting. But yeah, you're a wildly talented musician in that regard. How did you land? What took you to production versus like spending the rest of your life kind of in playing music, more or less?
I think it was I wanted to figure out how to. Well, it started with I wanted to figure out how to record it myself. I'd gotten that itch probably like like 06, 07. Like, and this was like pre-digital workstations were like widely available. There wasn't a lot of options with that. So that's how I got into like at least the engineering side of it. And then the more I worked on it, I worked at Richland. I don't know why. I think I said Richland because we did a project out of Richland, and that just popped into my head. No,
it was a long time. Oh man,
it was a while ago. It was a while ago. No, I worked at Kirkland as in part of the backstage crew, and then also as part of like the ushering crew. And so like watching shows and like working with like the tours that came through there was really interesting to me. I was heavily involved in the church and music and all that stuff. So I think that was my in, and then the deeper I got into it, it was just, the more I enjoyed doing it. There's a lot of crossover, I think, nowadays with musicianship and the production world. So
would you venture to like, was some of that like intrigue about recording music, was that kind of selfish isn't the right word, but was that kind of to record your own music, or was that just like at a whole you were just intrigued by the process of recording music?
No, I wanted to learn how to record stuff that I was writing or like helping to write.
Sure.
It was just the whole process of it was fascinating to me, and I wanted to. Like, I figured I'd never like wind up in a studio, so at least if I could do it in a house with some microphones or whatever, and create a decent product out of it.
Yeah,
I thought that would be worth it. So
very cool.
Yeah,
man. So 11 years ago, or no, 2011?
12
years ago.
Yeah,
12 years ago in 2011.
Yeah,
you started here at First Christian full time.
Yep.
I know your title has changed over the course of the years that you've been here, but when you first got here, you were kind of working with a production team at that time, but now the production here is a department. Would you agree?
Yeah. So when I came on, I was the only production person really on staff.
Title wise.
Yeah, okay. Title. And so we had volunteers that we worked with. So those were part of my team. But over the years, I think, and this is probably testament to the lead pastor, previously Pastor Wayne Kent. He was very much into the intersection of technology within the church, and so we put a lot of energy into that, trying to see not how we could like make the technology be the thing at the forefront, but like what's the best way to integrate with it and support like what's happening.
Using it as a tool more or less.
It's all tools. So that was probably a big that was a big push here. And so over time we've gone from myself, then there was a couple of us, maybe one of us in another part-time, to now we've got 3 full-time and one that's part-time. And so,
Huge.
So we have like just in the production side alone, there's 4 of us that work here on a weekly basis. So,
And the entire like Sunday morning production too has scaled up. Exponentially. Would you?
Yeah, I think right now we can range anywhere between like 11 and 14 like volunteer teams, people in the volunteer production team.
Sure.
And that's just to like maintain what's happening in both rooms.
Yeah, because this is for those that don't know.
Rooms.
One of 2 rooms here, which is
Right.
its own challenge. And effectively, when there are 2 rooms, you have to double the amount of. Effectively, you have double the need. But even beyond just like you've doubled the rooms. What let's go nerdy here for a quick second. What did you start out using high level audio wise? Where are you guys at now today in terms of just the West Auditorium, I guess?
Yeah, so when I started, we didn't even have cameras in the room.
Oh,
so
man.
it was, you're just talking about PA, console, and some personal mixers on stage. And that was like, essentially the extent of the audio system.
In-ears at that point or wedges? Okay.
We did have in-ears, and we also used wedges for a few things.
Periodically,
yeah. That was like the start of it. And then from there, just even in that first probably 4 years, we branched into doing lighting differently, adding cameras to the room for video. We started streaming. And that's really how the team had to grow, just out of those things kind of blossoming out of that period of time. So,
in 12 years, 400% growth, 450%, you have a part-timer. That's an enormous change. What would you, if you were to guess here, population-wise, for weekends, how much has that grown in those 12 years?
I think when I started, I try not to pay attention to like the numbers. Everybody says that. I don't care about the numbers. Doesn't matter. But I think at the time the church was probably around 500, 600, and that's part of the reason I think why I was hired, because we were seeing this growth pattern, and technology was becoming a larger part of that.
Sure.
And so we recognized that, and we tried to staff for it. But since then, we've gone, I want to say we're probably like in the maybe 1,100-1,200 range right now.
Wow.
That's just people walking in the
rooms.
door.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily include people, like it's an open campus during the week, so people are in and out of the building all week. But that also doesn't include like our online, like everything shifted 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
And so we had to figure out quickly how to effectively be online. And so you add that number to it, and that's kind of where we're at.
You guys managed that transition beautifully. It helped that the infrastructure was there to kind of ramp that up quickly when there weren't any options.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember.
In 2015 was probably the first time that we added cameras to this space, and that was to in our second room we were capturing the video in here, sending it across campus to the second room, and they were getting the teaching live, and so we had to learn how to do video a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But it was all in house. We weren't really streaming anything yet. So we did learn how to do some of that at that point. So then when we had to make the transition to streaming and what does it look like to be in broadcast mode, that was an easier move.
The transition obviously has been beautiful, and you guys have handled it very well.
Yeah.
And your staff is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I want to shout them out really quick.
Oh yeah.
Logan. He's
They're
out there right now. Yeah, they're all sitting in front of us right now. Logan helps get everything.
Matthew's
yeah, what the heck? Darn it.
He will be here.
Well, where is he now? Darn it. No, I'm just kidding. We'll still shout him out, of course.
Yeah.
Matthew Dement.
Logan
Killing
Ray,
it.
Drew Boehner.
It was pouring rain when I got here, and Drew just happened to be like walking in, and he was like, "Can I help you get everything out of your
That's how we
out of
roll.
your car?" And I was like,
I make them do all that.
You angel of a
Do you
human
know how
being.
I wasn't here, but they were here? They did it all.
That's delegation. That's
That
good
is
managerial. Absolutely.
That's why my desk is 3 times the size of theirs.
Oh my gosh. But shout out to Logan too. He helped me set up this room for this.
It looks good.
Yeah. They did great.
What does that do? I don't know. They did it.
Beats me.
That was
Along for the ride at this point. Clearly, we are at a church. You
Yep.
work at a church. How do you connect what you guys are doing, your whole production staff, on a Sunday morning, even week to week? Like, there's a lot that goes into the week that people don't like necessarily realize is a part of what makes Sunday morning happen.
Sure.
How do you connect that to the ministry of First Christian Church? Yeah, how do you connect that? Even, and let me take that a step further.
Yeah.
Even personally, how does that affect you, and how do you connect that to the greater ministry?
So I think what we do is, so one, we're a support for like what's happening on the platform or the sanctuary, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Like we're the support for that. Like you can't hear what's being said without a microphone.
True.
You can't see what they're saying. You can't see them without a light. And then now with video, like you can't watch someone on the web without that camera and the infrastructure to facilitate all that. So at the base level, I feel like our team is here to support what's happening on the weekend. Now, as an aside from that, I also think that what we do can be extremely creative.
Sure.
Like the thought that goes into the way a piano sounds or keyboard sounds or guitars, like all of that is part of the equation. And so we try to be as creative with that as possible, but still not just be the flash and trash and, oh, look at this cool knob that I can make. So anyway, so that's the goal. And then I also think that I think that we are called to help other churches and things like that in this community. We have several friends at other churches in town that we have really great relationship with. We get lunch with them. We talk shop. We bounce ideas off. Like, I think that's what we're also here to do, is to like support each of us. We're all like on the same team.
Oh, absolutely.
You've probably heard that analogy before, but we're all like moving the same direction. So why wouldn't we bounce stuff off each other?
And it's nice in an industry like this that's like so, I mean, obviously you can Google to your heart's desire, right?
Yeah.
So you maybe find the thing you're after, but how much better is it to reach for the phone and call, someone who has a team, who has experience, and it's
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like multiple disciplinary as well at that. Like, you guys are doing a lot of things that even smaller churches in the area are hoping to do.
Oh, sure.
Or have.
Well, it's all scale too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like they're doing the same things. It's just maybe it's on a different scale.
Sure.
So the baseline principles we can help think through and say, hey, you might want to look out for this.
Sure.
Or, I mean, there's been situations where they're doing something that I wasn't aware of. I'm like, oh, I'm going to borrow that idea because I think that might work better in this situation. So,
Sure.
Yeah, it's a back and forth that I think like we're called to do that. So,
and I will even take this a step further. I mean, we have worked with churches in 1981, and like we were in kind of a need, and I was like, who might have an answer to this question? Like, who can I put like a calendar event on for to schedule a time to talk about a potential like cloud storage solution or data management solution? And I was like, oh yeah, I should call Fred. And so yeah, you were there, and we chatted, and yeah, it was nice to reach for someone who had much more like direct industry experience at that as well, who had an answer for that was applicable to like directly to a church.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah.
Love it. How do you stay sharp and drive innovation? I know that you guys are regularly going to events relating to church production, but beyond that, I mean, or even in that, like what do you think drives innovation as well as gives you inspiration
Sure.
for the next thing? You flip over an auditorium 3 times a year probably for set changes.
Yeah, sometimes.
At least, or somewhere in that range. So where does that come from?
Well, so we go to conferences, you see things. It's nice to be able to take those things back and see if there's like a way to apply it to your individual situation. I think it's also good I like to pay attention to what's going on in the industry outside of churches.
Sure.
Because I think there's absolutely some things to learn from those folks and those individuals.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive necessarily.
No,
Production
no.
is like at times still production, right?
Oh,
like
yeah. Well, even like 2 or 3 years ago, like when tours and stuff shut down, all those guys were out of work, but churches weren't. So they like churches were the ones hiring like the road guys to do events and stuff because they're available.
Sure.
And so I think that was cool. I think that was an interesting artifact that came from that. But yeah, I mean, it's paying attention to the industry, like what's happening, keeping up with different certifications, things like specifically. So things like Dante, they've got some certifications that we go through because a lot of things are now like talking over network.
Sure.
So you got to know how the networks are functioning to be efficient in that. And a lot of that information is not hard to get a hold of. It's just a matter of sitting down and doing it.
Sure.
Yeah, so things like that. We try to stay sharp with each other. Like Drew might find something online and be like, hey, have you heard of this? And we'll pull it up, like how great of a DAW Pro Tools is. He's like triggered by that.
This Logic Man over here.
Pro Tools, baby.
Drew
best
gives
DAW.
us eyes.
Studio One forever.
Yeah, that's what he's thinking right now. But no, the industry moves fast. So I think if you just rely on the things that you know and don't actively pursue the things that you don't,
Sure.
You're going to get in a bad place pretty quickly. So
I think like life is just generally about growth, right?
Sure.
Like, and the moment that we're like, nah, the stuff I know today is good enough.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
man, we lose our value to our institutions because we're not welcoming like new ideas or again, it's like it kills innovation. You just get stagnant so fast. And honestly, in production, especially like the world of technology, you know, they used to say every 2 years the power of a processor doubles, but like there's no way that that's even like fractionally true anymore. It's so much faster than that.
Yeah.
So you really, really, really have to stay up in the times, at least with know-how.
I think too is like understanding the tools that you have at your disposal now, even if it's not like the next gen or whatever.
Totally.
There's things that I'll use audio console as an example, but there's things that it can probably do that you're just not aware of because you haven't done the deep dive into the workflow.
Sure.
So you just have to keep going after that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. One of the things that kind of comes along with this, one thing I've always super, super respected about you, is
my beard.
It is that I'm not doing you know, that's not happening for me anytime soon. But your frugalness for the church, I have always so appreciated, and I think this is not to sound offensive to any other churches, but it's largely accepted that like the production is like maybe the biggest line item or part of the you know, church.
Yeah.
But I've always loved that you have been very mindful of that line, and like you guys were running an FS7, right, for a super long time when there were other options like out there for a broadcast camera. I mean, and so where do you think some of that comes from, and what's your approach to really making the most out of some of those things that are their own limit, but you're making the most of it? What's that like?
Yeah, I don't. So I'm not scared of eBay. I mean, like there's been plenty of times where, like we've purchased gear off eBay and knowing that, well, maybe there's something that might be a little quirky about it, but we could fix it.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too, like to know the gear you're dealing with well enough that like buying used or secondhand isn't a problem, so long as you know that you might have to open it up at some point.
Sure.
I also think it depends on use case too, like computers. So I'm in charge of like IT in the building as well. A lot of the computers that we get, we're buying refurbished or things like that. But that's just because like you can still get full functionality out of the machine, even though it's like you're not ripping the plastic off of it.
Sure.
And I don't have any problems with doing those sorts of things. You do have to look at like what's going to get the most mileage, and can I afford to fix this later on when it does inevitably break down, or should I go ahead and purchase it brand new, knowing I'm going to get X amount of time out of it. So it's like just trying to balance those things. Like there's gear that we'll often buy secondhand because we know we can either repair it or rotate it into another location. Those are just the kind of things that I think about as we're looking at gear purchases.
That's huge. I just like genuinely love that, like, as a person who knows or has got to be at least adjacent to like friends who pretty much, if they ask, they get in their version of their tech world, right?
Yeah.
But you've just been just a strong believer in kind of being a good steward of what your department needs, and that's huge. I mean, I think that's a super respectable thing about you. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this, like, everything you guys do is incredible.
So you're saying I'm awesome?
I mean, that was like a given. You're guest number 3 right now, Fred. So come on.
Sick.
But yeah, no, I think you've always been a good steward of that, and I've gotten to kind of see that evolve over 10 years. When, I mean, goodness, before the East Auditorium existed, there was a lot of Sundays we were running an old like Fender PA with 2 acoustic guitars and an SM58 run into it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Another big musical learning moment as a young man. Love it.
Yeah.
So what's happening in the production industry right now that you're like super excited about? Like, what gets you're just like, oh my gosh, like, this is so sick. What does that look like for you?
I mean, I think video's really kind of taken off in the last couple of years.
I mean, shoot, you guys will be running 8K next year, so
obviously.
I mean,
more Ks, more saves, That's what they say.
I have never heard that.
I've never heard that either. That was so dumb.
Oh my gosh. That's going to be the clip it.
Oh my gosh.
Man, you can see the follicles on Fred's beard with this 12K image readout.
Yeah, that is the goal.
Baptized.
No, I mean, the cost of video related equipment has come down because the depth of what's out there is a bit wider than it used to be.
It's like dumb too, like how affordable it's gotten, like, rapidly. I mean, it's really inspiring, I think, for us, even when we're meeting with clients, to talk about like your iPhone's a great camera. It does well, but if you're like trying to take that next step, you can buy a really great video camera, really great video equipment for $1,000, and that has a lot of legs. Mm-hmm. But even $500 is a lot of legs. So
yeah, there's a lot of affordable options with
totally,
it now, and different things to accomplish different goals, like whether it's like you're only streaming or you're only doing live broadcast. Just different tools for different use cases. I think the other interesting thing is, like, there's a lot of talk about AI in culture right now, and particularly as it reflects, or as it connects to like the church world. I was just at a conference where they had a breakout where they were talking about AI and AI workflows, and that's kind of interesting to me, like how we could take that tool and utilize it in a production environment, whether that's like generating input lists or I don't even know. But that was just an interesting, like, what are the use cases for that? I mean, audio is always like, it's incredibly advanced. The size of the console that is available now for that same input count, it would have been a massive analog desk. So I think the functionality of audio is there. PA, I mean, the way PA sound is night and day difference than what it was. I mean, granted, we still got EAW boxes in the air from 2006, which have been incredibly grateful that they have lasted this long because they get a lot of use. But even now, like, the boxes are more efficient, the power's more efficient. I mean, I think that's really important, especially like in an organization like a church. Every dollar that you have to take towards something gear related, maybe isn't a dollar that would go towards a specific other ministry. And there's balances there. I'm not saying that we're taking from that and doing this other thing, but the
Kenya trip this year is a little bit less exciting because
I had to get a new audio console. That's one of the things that I think about is like, do I need to spend this money for this thing? Because that could mean that there's something that we don't get to do that would affect an individual or a person.
I love that.
And
so much
I think
about
that's
you.
It's, how are we affecting the people? That's the most important part of that.
That's incredible. Really cool to hear too. What in the ministry of First Christian Church, like here, this specific First Christian Church, are you excited to see? That's also getting you excited.
So I think it's been interesting watching how churches are affecting the city. I think when I started, like, I didn't know a lot of people at different churches. I just didn't, because I hadn't been working in church in a while.
Sure.
So I think watching what other churches are doing and how we're kind of working together in this community, I think is a big deal. And I'm very much interested in, like, what are the things that we can do together versus isolating ourselves inside of each of our churches. So that's really cool. I think too, there's a hunger among young adults, like probably people like mid to late 20s through 30s, or even like, 40's the new 30? I don't know. I lost track of all that. No, I think there's like a real like hunger for that demographic to be effective in the ministry of churches, not just here, but like in the city. So I think those sorts of things are really exciting to me, because that's cool. That's another generation behind me.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important that we support that and move that into the next group or generation.
Absolutely. And you guys have been making huge steps forward in that over the last 4 or 5 years with Young Decatur really fleshing out too, which has been a huge. I mean, it's beautiful to see the expansion. I mean, it was. I was part of a campus ministry at Millikan, and that pretty much faded into like just to the side because Young Decatur kind of took over the need for that space.
Yeah.
And facilitated an actual physical space to have and
Sure.
kind of create that opportunity, which is so cool to see. Just, I mean, that's the 20-somethings. It's so neat.
I think having the college age thing is cool, but I also think those people that are like just out of college, like there's that weird like.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know if weird is the right word, but like I was in that space where you get done with school and then you're like, okay, what am I doing now?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Because I'm not part of the
I'm not-
40-somethings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like naturally where I think a lot of people would have tend to migrate in terms of like small groups or their peer group.
Sure.
But now like there's that middle block, and this even includes people who maybe decide not to go to like college, but they're in that like they're 18, 19, 20
Grouping, yeah.
and
yeah.
like where do they fit in? And so I think that's an important time period. I mean, when I was growing up, like a lot of my friends who had grown up going to church or whatever, like they get to college and then it's like, maybe I'm not so much interested in that
Sure.
and going back to church. And so it's like, okay, how can we do better at helping move people through that time? So I think that's really interesting right now.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So you obviously have been managing. You've been the sound man here for a really long time.
I've been the sound man.
It was on my list. It had to happen. Yeah. Now you're speaking of being the sound
Triggered.
man. So you've kind of ventured off into doing something a little bit more entrepreneurial than you had been doing in the past. You are managing. You've done sound for dance for show choir.
Yep.
The Lincoln now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Lincoln.
Yep,
Okay,
we're
cool.
working with Lincoln.
So what is the trajectory of this kind of look like for you in terms of this venture?
I think so. I don't know if it's so much as like I'm doing those things like with an end goal in mind, as much as like, well, these things don't have to have terrible production just because it's a dance recital
Sure.
or it's a show choir or it's some local band coming through a local theater. Like you can do a good job at it and not be a total jerk to the people that are around you. So that's probably my end game. Like I just want to be a decent human being to work with and create a good end product that they can be happy with.
I love that. I've told you this every time we're even like remotely close to working together or anything like that, but it's always you're always getting a text at the end that's like, Fred, thank you so much for
Thanks for being a jerk.
No. The complete opposite of that. Thank you for being the greatest person to get to work with. Yeah, I've gotten to work with First Christian Church over the course of the last several years.
Yeah.
In one instance or another for photography, for video, for a mix of things. And every time I'm just like, I'm so thankful for your staff being so great and accommodating and easy to work with. But you as well. Yeah, you guys are pretty great. So
Yeah, they're great. They're great.
It's nice, even like this. I mean, I called this place church home for 8 years. 8 years.
Yeah.
A little less. 6
Somewhere
years.
in there.
Yeah.
You're
Something
close.
like that. And it's cool coming back. I mean, I have since moved, and it's cool coming back 2 years later and just seeing how different it is, but still home like it is. And I think that is absolutely attributed to just the environment that you guys maintain. Churches aren't always like that. I think that there's a sense of like clickability to them, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
But this First Christian hasn't ever felt like that.
I think I'd be silly to like be where I'm at now and think that like, oh, all these things I established, like we're never gonna move away from that because I created it. No, I mean like that. I mean that's to like what Logan does, what Drew does, what Matthew does. Like I consider them part of what makes all these things happen because it's their touches on things that I think helps keep pushing us forward because they're going to see things differently than I will.
Totally.
And so I think that's important to keep moving fresh ideas through the system so we can continue to be creative. We can continue to point people towards Jesus and then just be decent human beings at it through the whole thing.
I think that all contributes to just like a high level of like agility in the workplace, of malleability in the workplace, and honestly, like you said, it ultimately fosters an even more creative environment, which is so cool to see, and it's really cool to hear. Like, shouts out to the team. Like they're they do great things, and it's so team oriented. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's super neat.
Agreed.
Fred, what have been some like highlight moments of the time you've been here? Like, whether that's oh my gosh, I cannot believe that worked, or like just high level highlights. What are a couple that come to mind?
So, I think there's a couple times where I was a little bit, I don't know if shocked was the right word. I think it's there's a couple different ways I probably look at this. We've been using Click for as long as I can remember.
Oh my gosh, what an incredibly humbling experience that was as an 18-year-old.
Yeah. We've been using Click for a long time, but I remember when we switched to Ableton and started utilizing that Click with tracks, that was like an aha moment in terms of like supplementing with things and figuring. I mean, there was a learning curve. I obviously went through it, but I remember like stuff like that when you get through the first Sunday and it like worked, and it wasn't like obvious that it worked.
Yeah.
But it like worked really
Went
well,
swimmingly.
and nobody noticed necessarily. That was always great. I think another kind of like interesting point was, so Mike Engelhart is the one who was a worship arts director here when I was hired, and he wanted to do a live CD, and this was before we had the console we have now, which multi-tracking nowadays is like, oh, you mean you don't multi-track?
Right.
What kind of crazy person are you? This was before we could multi-track digitally, so we had to bring in like a split snake. I had a separate console running to our office at the time, so it was like analog inputs to a A to D conversion unit to get 48 channels.
Oh my
CD.
gosh.
Yeah, it was insane. And we did that over the course of one weekend. We captured, I think, 4 services, mixed that down, and then it actually turned into a CD. It was crazy. So that was a big deal for me. It's probably 2012.
Please stream that right now on Spotify, on Apple Music, on YouTube, so that we can.
Right.
That's right. No, I'm just kidding.
The album was called Filled with Wonder. It was like a huge band, choir, like all the things. So that was pretty significant, like getting through that weekend, and all that stuff worked. We didn't have any technical issues. Like everything happened the way it was supposed to, so it was great. But I think if you fast forward to now, I think like every weekend I'm kind of like looking for a moment that is kind of like the punctuation on what's happening that weekend. And so like when you're able to like step back and see everything like working well, and not in a way that's like, let's wiggle the right lights all around the room and like blind people, but it's like it fits with the moment, like it fits with the words that are being sung. The audio like works with what's being sung or played. The video, now that we're doing live video, like the video moments that you're seeing fit with, like those are the things that like really get me energized. Like what we're doing matters, like to see those moments happening like on a weekly basis.
Kind of personally at this point, like how do you keep your spiritual relationship kind of whole when you're spending so much time kind of in, I mean, it can be fulfilling to engage in the like the production and the technology that aid other people's worship experience and their connections, but that can be taxing for people. I felt taxed by that when I was playing, for a time in my life, 3 or 4 Sundays a month,
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do to keep that kind of fresh for you, working in production or
specific to the weekends? I mean, like I think I try to step out of like when we actually, after we get through rehearsals and all that stuff, and we actually like we're in service, I try to take the things that we have to do. Like I try to set that aside and like remember the purpose to everything that's going on. Like I maybe didn't get like the reverb like just right on that vocal. But that's not the most important thing. And so I try to stay grounded with that. And then two, like just making sure like that I'm plugged in with, oh man, that's a really like church word. Plugged in, get plugged in. I try to make sure like I have a group of people around me that we're doing the things that actually matter, like being in like community together. Like that's the stuff that really matters. My family is the stuff that really matters. Like
Amen.
if I'm not good with my family, then like this part of it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I try to stay grounded in all of that. Make sure I have friends that are like checking me periodically. And I think that helps with like the whole burnout thing.
Yeah.
Like I love doing this.
Yeah.
I genuinely love doing this. And I know there's probably people that could say that and now are like, they just can't get there anymore. I'm hoping that I'll never get to that. And I think that's why it's important to still like hang out with your people, like be together, because those are the relationships that really matter.
So over the course of your time in production, what have been some like career highlights of like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? Some oh shoot moments, if you will.
Yeah. Well, the ones that are like coming to mind are ones that I've done recently.
Oh man, we love it.
Yeah.
Shout out current clients.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, I won't get like too specific, but I'll see if I can like generalize what was going on. There was a show that I was involved with that the bands, they weren't my personal preference, which is fine.
Got it.
Any bands that I work with, like it doesn't have to be what my preference is, because somebody's gonna like it.
Yeah.
It was a weird show.
Okay.
It was a lot of drinking on stage, which fluids and electrical gear don't exactly mix well. So that was concern one.
Oh no.
And then it was just like kind of chaotic. I think about 15 minutes into the first set, I'm like, I'm checked out. I'm done. And I don't usually act like that,
sure.
but it was just that much of a challenge for me to stay excited about it. Another show that I did, they were a tribute band that they covered. It was actually like a Beatles tribute band. And the guy that played George Harrison, he's actually from Liverpool. So he had like the legit kind of like vibe about it.
Yeah.
But it was a super fun show to mix because they had really done their homework on the source material. Like they knew the music inside and out. They're really great musicians. So it was a fun show to mix. That was probably like mixing wise, like outside of the church world, like that was probably like a highlight. If I could put a pin in something, that was a lot of fun to do. And I think the people there at that show, like they all had a good time with it too. So
I love it. What advice would you give to someone kind of coming up in the production world, whether that's church production or just outside production, that you feel like is beneficial? Or maybe that you wish you had learned earlier?
Sure. I think you have to be careful about like pigeonholing yourself into maybe like one discipline. I mean, like when people talk about like when they say like, oh, I need a sound guy, a lot of times that means like, well, they need somebody to check the lighting. They need somebody to like video record it. They need like, so
It's the catch-all.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, the PM for their show or whatever. But I think it's important to kind of like make sure you are always learning like the different disciplines like in that field. When I went through school, like networked audio like it was like a thing, but it wasn't common. So I think things like that, like having a good base understanding of networking and how all those devices interact, I think is important nowadays, because you'll find it in every discipline you work in. That was something I was fortunate enough to learn early on, and coming on here in IT, like fortunately there was crossover there. So that was good. But I think keep pushing yourself in like your continuing ed, like certifications, those sorts of things I think are really important just to keep the skill set fresh. So
where do you think your love for music comes from, and being around it? Because you've clearly chosen to spend most of your life like kind of within, quite literally within earshot of it. So who do you have to thank for that, I guess?
I think so. I had a lot of support from my parents growing up. Like,
that's huge.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Like I remember I was percussion in school. Like I wanted to play the snare. Like you got like the single snare or like a bell kit sometimes. So I wanted to do that. But like I had a backup plan, like I'll do saxophone if the whole like
they're pretty close.
Yeah, it was like paired. No, so like I was pretty dead set on drums, and fortunately I didn't think my parents were actually going to let me play drums. I thought it was going to end up in like a woodwind section or something. But I did get into that, and so I think that kind of started the trajectory, was like support from them. They knew that I loved music, and they were really cool about it, and just helping to continue like my learning, like passionate about all things drums growing up. So they did what they could to help elevate that.
Huge.
So I think that was critical in like where I've progressed as a musician.
I love it. Shout out the parents.
Yep, that's right.
Really quick, can you imagine being a flautist with that beard? Just the visual of that
would be kind of cool.
Sending me, honestly.
Yeah, I think it could be cool. Maybe I'll pick up the flute. Yeah,
it's just like blowing in the wind, just like
that would be amazing.
Oh my god!
Now I can't stop thinking about it.
Fred's midlife crisis is picking up the flute.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I am now a woodwind player.
Okay, so rapid fire here right at the end.
Boy. Okay.
All right, you ready for this?
Yep.
I intentionally gave you no information about these.
As it should be.
So, okay. Top 5 albums of all time.
Okay. Does it have to be in like order of?
No, just
okay.
Generally top 5.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. May the Everglow. Vince Guaraldi Trio, Charlie Brown Christmas. Dave Brubeck Quartet. Specifically the album, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the album. It has Take Five.
Real big fan over here.
Yeah, real big fan. Big fan.
Speaking of real big fish, their live album being your number 5?
I wish.
It's a good number 5.
I think I'm gonna have to go with, oh, this is so hard. Jamiroquai.
Good record. Good choice. Virtual
Traveling
Insanity?
Without Moving.
Okay. Yeah. Man.
That the sonic like stuff in that record, like I'm into it.
I found out about that record a year ago.
Yeah.
Probably almost on the nose actually. And I couldn't believe that it wasn't both A, like a very modern record,
mm-hmm.
and B, that this was not the biggest artist in the entire history of the world. After hearing, I was like, how was this guy not just everywhere?
Yeah.
I mean, he's in Napoleon Dynamite, which is kind of huge, but I mean, he deserved to be like playing baseball stadiums. Goodness, Wrigley Field,
Obviously.
Fenway. Come on
Obviously.
now.
I think
Can't he?
if there was like a there's one more record.
Okay, give me your alt sixth.
Alt sixth, and I'll probably get some flack for this one.
Can't wait.
It's not as bad as I'm making it sound. It's gonna be Nirvana, Nevermind.
Yeah, I'm giving him flack for
Yeah.
it. we actually we had a disagreement about this. You definitely don't remember this because it was not that important. but I remember having a disagreement with you about the importance of Nirvana.
Yeah.
And I was talking about a band that I liked in the like post rock alt pop punk space, and you were like, that band would never have existed if not for Nirvana. And I was like,
It's true.
Okay,
It's true.
Fred.
It's true.
Smells like whatever.
I remember hearing that guitar riff at the beginning of Smells Like Teen Spirit. I'm like, I'm going to learn how to play guitar. I thought it was an epic.
That's actually a perfect segue into my next question. You are a wildly talented multi-instrumentalist, but you get one Sunday. Do you hope you're playing drums, bass, or electric/acoustic guitar?
Drums.
Yeah.
It'd have to be drums.
As a selfish musician that's fictitiously on that same worship team with you that one specific Sunday, I also hope that you're the drummer while I'm some other element of the band, because you are so good at what you do. You're so tight. You have more self-mixing abilities than I have ever than any person I've ever gotten to play with. And I tell every drummer I have ever played with since I've played with you one time about the concept of self-mixing and playing to your dynamics.
I learned that from somebody in Nashville. It like the concept never like crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And I had a whole conversation about this. And at the time, it was probably like he was using, I think maybe like the iPhone 4 as the example, but he would tell me like, yeah, no, when you're practicing drumming, like put it like on a shelf behind your head and play for a while, like record that. And if like all you can hear is like the splash of your cymbals, like you got to figure out like how to self-mix better. It's probably not the case nowadays with the current iPhone, and I haven't tried it. But the concept of self-mixing from him stuck with me. So
Well, it's passed on at least to this generation, but of people. But I have respected that forever. This is another controversial question here, Fred. Precision bass or jazz bass?
What am I playing through?
That is a good follow-up question. The only logical question here is an SVT, though.
P bass.
That's the wrong answer. You've given really bad answers so far, Fred. Also, very important, sloppy wet or unforeseen.
Sloppy wet.
Thank you. Crowder forever. Actually, we can end right here. There's no other important question. Well, I should have asked this at the very beginning because nothing has as much substance as that does. Oh my gosh.
Zero context for the question. If you don't know CCM.
You had to be there, yeah. Speaking of Crowder, what is the best DCB song?
Oh my gosh. Okay, this might take me a second. It was on the Illumination album.
Off to a great start.
I don't know if it's like the best, but I think I have the fondest memories of it.
I like that answer so far.
Here Is Our King was always fascinating to me, and I don't even know what, like, it's a pretty basic song. There's nothing like special about it.
I mean, it's David Crowder.
It is.
So.
There was a there was a group that well, you're familiar with the Killers.
Yeah, of course.
There was something about that a friend of mine like merged part of the intro of the Killers, one of the Killer songs, with the intro of that, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So I couldn't like shake that.
I love it, man. Good choice. Excellent choice.
I don't know if it's a great choice. But
No, I mean I'm with that. What is the worst worship song of the last 15 years?
Oh my god.
Oceans is not allowed to be the option.
Darn. The worst?
Oh, yeah.
Within the last 15 years. So that puts us back to
08.
08. I've probably forgotten it. If it's the worst,
I mean,
I'm not going to recall it.
Personally, what you're like, I'll adapt this. The one you're the most over, or were the most over.
All I can think of is Sloppy Wet Kissing.
How He Loves is the perfect worship song.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It was good in its time.
Absolutely. Staple,
It's
though.
not the worst. I'm kind of over it now.
I would be floored if that song came out after 08.
I think it was 2011.
There's no way. I think
100%.
I think it's Corey Asbury who has the original version of
Nope.
that.
John Mark McMillan.
Yeah, JMM. Yeah.
His original version was like 2010 or 2011.
I don't believe it for a second.
I
would like someone in the crowd to fact check.
I have the record.
Fact check How He Loves. When was it released?
I could check. I think I have the album on my phone right now. You want me to check?
I think they're on it. Peanut Gallery is checking this very important question here.
My library, John.
Oh, 5, baby.
What?
So it's not even close to being allowed.
Darn it. When was it released, though? But the re-release was 2012, so doesn't it still count?
There's no way. By Crowder?
No. So
Yeah.
2005 was the original release.
Great.
The song, was it? The song Inside the Sounds of Breaking Down. So deeply personal to him, and then he re-released it in 2012 as a reissue. Same album.
Good taste, honestly.
Most people didn't know about it, though, until around that time.
Makes sense.
I'm going to make it count.
I'm here for it. Man, of all the, you are in a worship service every week.
I know.
And that's the one we're going with? Man, oh man. I have at least 4 in front of that one.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Of mine?
Yeah.
This is Amazing Grace. Most of Chris Tomlin's catalog.
These are
Fighting words.
Oh my.
I feel like we were playing This Is Amazing Grace like
It's been around for
11 years after it was
Yeah, it's been around for
so long.
I could get on board with that one.
Yeah.
But it's from like overexposure
Sure,
rather than it's
yeah.
a bad song.
Yeah. I played a lot of like fun songs being like on like doing youth group and stuff here for a long time. So like I could probably just as easily say like I was like when Wake was on the
yeah.
thing.
In
Some of
rotation,
the Young and Free stuff like
Some of that stuff was pretty good
yeah,
though.
yeah.
Some of those are bangers.
Yeah. I mean, can't hit Fee though. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about him, but
You're allowed.
I mean,
He's back.
okay, cool.
He's
cool.
back. It's fine. We've dealt with our issues.
We're back. Oh my goodness. Fred,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here and
Thanks for having me.
taking the time to chat.
Yeah.
Where can we find you? What do you want to shout out?
Okay. So I have a link tree now,
Oh, I mean,
but I don't remember what the URL is.
it's great.
It's probably like Linktree
At Kingbeard
Yeah.
Sourmann.com.
But I am on Linktree.
Okay.
So that's where you can get everything. So I guess I have a question. I still like Twitter, but is it Twitter or is it X? I've not figured this out.
My morning newsletter, Legal Eagle, sponsored by Legal Eagle,
Yeah.
brought to me Morning Brew. Thank you. Got there. Keeps referring to it as X, formerly Twitter, in parentheses. So
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of like Prince and the artist
Sure.
formerly known as Prince.
How long is it going to be before it actually
Yeah.
gets back to Twitter?
Yeah. Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm on Twitter
Okay.
at F Saurmann. That's where I am at most socials.
Love it.
So yeah, just pop that in the old search bar and you'll find me.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, and
Thank you.
keep tuning in. We'll do more of these. we'll interview every member of the First Productions team.
That sounds solid.
First Productions on Instagram as well.
We are
Perfect.
at First Productions.
And thanks for tuning in here at Decatur First Christian Church. Fred Saurmann, sound man extraordinaire.
Sound man.
Love it.